All right, big news. This thing, I woke up today to a tweet, or not a tweet, a text from my friend Dinesh D'Souza, movie maker, movie producer, movie star, New York Times bestselling author, Obama's America 2016, Hillary's America, The Secret History of the Democratic Party, and The Big Lie. That's the new book that's out. And he was just overjoyed. He said, Pags, if you've got room, love to come on the show today. I got the call. I'm like, what does that even mean? I got the call. So I decided we would ask him directly. Dinesh, I appreciate you, man. How are you?
Hey, Joe, it's great to be on your show.
You appear, my friend, and when I answered the phone call, I even said this, you sound very free to me today. This is amazing news.
I've been doing a little bit of moonwalking, you might say, for 24 hours, and by that I mean I'm just literally feel almost weightless because a great weight has been lifted from my shoulders. I have to remember, Joe, I'm an immigrant, and I came to America with $500 in my pocket, and so I've lived the American dream, and yet I've sort of lived the American nightmare. And just the idea of standing in a courtroom, the United States of America versus Dinesh D'Souza, this horrible ordeal. And so I'm just really glad it's over, and I'm ready to charge forward.
Okay, so I got a text from you, and it said, Joe, I got the phone call. Tell me about this phone call. That must have just knocked your socks off.
It sure did. I mean, there's a little backstory to this. About a month, Debbie, my wife, and I had dinner in Ted Cruz's apartment with him and his wife Heidi. And Ted said to us, he goes, I've been thinking about your case, Dinesh, and it's an outrage, and I'm really going to press the president to pardon you. This was because Trump had just recently pardoned Scooter Libby.
Right.
And so Ted said, I'm going to raise it with him myself. And then he kind of reported back to me later, and he goes, the president is very receptive. He goes, but this is a complicated business. It involves reviews and the legal counsel.
Yeah.
And so it may take some time. So keep it under wraps, and we'll see what happens. Don't say anything until you get the phone call.
Right.
And then yesterday I got the phone call, and
it wasn't the president himself? Who was it?
It was wonderful.
Who was it on the phone?
So an operator comes on the line and goes, is this Mr. Dinesh D'Souza? And I said yes. And she goes, hold the line for the President of the United States.
Come on.
And then there's a pause, and then it's Trump.
Wow.
And he couldn't have been more gracious, and he was very much himself, very relaxed. He was in the Oval Office with John Kelly, and he basically goes, Dinesh, he goes, you're a great guy. You've been a great voice for freedom and for America. And he said, I got to tell you, man to man, you got screwed. He goes,
wow.
You did a technicality. You should have gotten a fine, a slap on the wrist, but these people went after you hammer and tong. And he goes, it's an injustice. And he goes, I'm going to correct it. I'm going to wipe your slate clean. I want you to be an even bigger voice doing what you do out there. And I could do little more than blurt out thank you. Yeah. And we discussed a few administrative details about when would this go public, et cetera, and that was that.
I just think it's awesome. It's Dinesh D'Souza, movie producer. He also is a great documentarian. He's an incredible writer. He's a lecturist. If you haven't gone and seen him speak, you need to go and do that when he's anywhere near you. I understand we can't say anything much about it, but I understand first week of August we should expect something new, something big from you, right?
Well, I've been actually, in hunkered down working on finishing a book.
Okay.
And we've also been editing a big movie, and they both come out the first week of August.
Love it.
So we'll be revealing more about that, and we're also releasing a trailer for the movie shortly.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about all that, but for now, obviously, I'm just focused on just this tremendous personal sense of liberation. You may almost say getting my American dream back.
And I want to go through that a bit. I would be remiss to not tell people what it was that you were charged and convicted of. You were charged with giving too much to a campaign. If I recall, it was a friend of yours. You gave $20,000. She didn't know that you even did it. You didn't know that there was some sort of a limitation on how much you could donate. The Obama administration, after you do Obama's America 2016, somehow figured out a way that we need to drop the hammer on this guy. And are you the only person who's ever been convicted of such a crime like this?
Yes, no American has ever been prosecuted, let alone locked up for doing what I did. And that's the key point. I mean, I did break the law. I should get the penalty.
And you've never denied that. And you've never denied that.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yes. But if someone is, caught speeding and they get 5 years in prison, the injustice is not that they didn't break the law. They did, but that the penalty doesn't fit the crime, and other people who speed don't get that penalty. And that's the case here. A small tidbit from my FBI file. So the FBI has a file on me, and the Congressional Oversight Committee has been trying to get it for now almost 2 years. And under Obama, they kept blocking it with all the usual excuses that we hear in other contexts.
Yeah.
Oh, it's confidential. Oh, our informants will be outed. Oh, the case is still pending, even though the case was over. Well, finally, the Congressional Oversight Committee got my file. It's very interesting because in there I'm red flagged as a right-wing conservative. So in other words, that's what they were hiding, that the FBI was signaling to the Holder Justice Department, hey, we got one for you. This is a political enemy. You may want to go after this dude. And so this is the kind of corruption that goes on behind closed doors. And it's only now in such a big way starting to get flushed out. And my case is like a miniature of what's been going on in italics in the country today.
Right. It's Dinesh D'Souza, newly freed, no longer a convict of some sort of election issue that was again something that should have been a slap on the wrist and a fine and so on, prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, convicted of a felony, which was nuts. Or was it a felony or not? It was, right?
It was a felony, and had I not gotten a pardon, I would never be able to vote or own a firearm. So not only while I'm under probation, but for life.
That's nuts. Dinesh, you mentioned that, you being an immigrant from India, you love this country. You have since the moment you got here. You have been living the American dream. And then the weight of the entire government of this country that you love so much was dropped on your head. How did you not lose faith, man? How did you not lose faith in this country you've given so much to?
Well, I had to keep telling myself that I needed to make a distinction between the country that I love and its government that I don't love so much.
Okay.
Today my prosecutor, this Indian guy named Preet Bharara, tweeted out, and he goes, "Oh yes, Trump can pardon anyone he wants, but we got to remember that Dinesh voluntarily pleaded guilty to this offense." Yeah. Now I want to reveal how this game is played, because when they say things like this, Dinesh pled guilty. Well, I did plead guilty. How did I plead guilty? The bottom line of it is they tell you, look, you're facing a campaign finance violation, which carries 2 years in prison. So you got to weigh that risk. Then they go, however, we are thinking of dropping a second charge on you. Essentially, it's called filing a false document. Not that you did anything else that's wrong, but it's the same crime described a different way, and this carries 5 years in prison. So now they are in a position to destroy your life, and they say, but if you plead guilty to the lesser, we will drop the major charge. And so it's this kind of bludgeoning tactic that is used by the prosecution. And the important point to remember is that this is a tactic that works on the innocent as much as on the guilty. Essentially, it forces you to plead guilty no matter whether you are guilty or not. And so this kind of thuggery is then masked in the procedure, because afterward they can say, because I sign a document, he pled guilty, he admitted he did it. Right. But they don't reveal the heavy hand that is behind the velvet glove.
And by the way, the Obama administration was after you because of that movie, which was very true. It showed a real characterization of who this guy was from birth, right to where he was as the president. And basically, had you gone through trial, if you're found guilty, you could have spent 7 consecutive years behind bars. So you did the best thing you could do. But were you hoping that one day you'd get a review of the case and maybe something like this could happen, or was this completely foreign to you?
Well, I certainly was praying for it. But usually once you enter a plea, you're kind of cooked, and you have to take your medicine and live with it. And I have lived with it, and I certainly have paid a price. So, by the way, I'm not saying I didn't break the law. I'm not saying I shouldn't pay a penalty. But I'm saying I have paid enough. And the issue here is that with Obama, when I speak on campus, people will say, well, man, what makes you think Obama watched your dumb movie? What makes you think the President of the United States cares about your movie? Well, the reason I know he does is that when the movie came out, he was raging against it on his personal website, BarackObama.com. So that's why I think he got pissed about the movie, because I had clear evidence of it.
And at that point, it was time to find something on Dinesh. It's Dinesh D'Souza. Go follow him on all the social media, millions of followers now, and you've got to check out all of his movies, all of his books, and we'll have you on again heading toward August to find out what's coming up. Dinesh, if you don't mind, can we spend a minute on the Roseanne Barr situation?
Sure.
I just have to bring this up because as I was talking about this on my show yesterday, I couldn't help but remember those very vivid pictures and depictions of the campaign ads from the Democratic Party back in the day before the alleged big switch and they started pretending they were somebody they weren't. But they, in their campaign ads, would rail against Republicans because of their love for the Negro, for the slave, for the fill-in-the-blank, whatever they were calling black people at the time. And the depiction, the actual characterization of black people was always a monkey, an ape, a chimpanzee, something in that family. The only reason why there's any comparing black people to those sorts of animals is because the Democrats did it. Is that not true?
That is absolutely true, that all the horrific images of racism that are today the Democrats try to pin, you may say, on the right or on the Republican elephant, the origin of these is the Democratic donkey. Just to give a single example, in both the 1860 campaign and the 1864 campaign, the Democrats literally used these terms against Lincoln. They came up with the epithet Abraham Africanus I,
wow,
as if Lincoln was a black man.
Yeah.
And they would caricature him to make him look black. And then Lincoln's running mate, Hannibal Hamlin, they started spreading the rumor that he was black, even though that was not the case. And so comparing these guys to orangutans and monkeys, this is part of staple white supremacist rhetoric that was actually invented by the Democratic Party and then taken up by the progressive left in the early part of the 20th century. I
think you think I'm reasonably smart. I'm nowhere near Dinesh D'Souza smart, but I mean, I'm reasonably smart. Dinesh, I promise you on everything that is dear to me, I had no idea Valerie Jarrett was black. Roseanne, who I'm connected with on Twitter, has told me personally through direct message she had no idea Valerie Jarrett was black. Should we all just know everybody's race by looking at them? I mean, is that where we are in America today? And if you don't know somebody's race, you've got to be careful what animal you compare. Look, her tweet sucked. It was stupid. It was a dumb tweet that she's apologized for. But was that inherently racist because Roseanne was being racist, or because Democrats assume any comparison to an ape means race?
Well, I do think, I wouldn't defend the Roseanne tweet, in part because Roseanne herself never defended it. And in fact, she even said to her supporters, don't defend it.
Right.
Because I think it was extreme. And it, in fact, played into the historic Democratic kind of white supremacist rhetoric.
Right.
Now, that being said, I was a little surprised that Roseanne did it, because that's not how I see Roseanne.
Right.
And the issue for me is, when you don't know what is in somebody's heart, are you going to try to irretrievably destroy their career over a line that they blurted out, who knows, in the heat of the moment,
right,
or in a sort of demented attempt to be funny, on Twitter? I don't think we want to live in a society where people pay that kind of price and there's that kind of severity. The Democrats would certainly stop doing this if we did it to them. And I don't think it's a healthy environment at all. So that's kind of my take on Roseanne, that I think the tweet was inexcusable, and I'm glad she apologized for it.
Yeah.
It seems to me that I don't know ultimately what price she will pay, but I don't like this notion that we try to destroy people over a single tweet.
My friend, keep on floating on air. Keep on doing incredible works. Much love to your lovely wife, Debbie. Dinesh D'Souza, free at last, my friend. Thank goodness, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We're back after this in the Joe Pag Show. Stay right here.
Newsmax TV. Watch us on Dish, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, Verizon Fios, or download our free app. Don't have Newsmax TV? Call your local cable provider and request Newsmax today.